we're driving on these roads to this house that we're renting. And with many Central American countries, the roads are like video games. The potholes are deep and wide.
Yeah.
And it is a game to try and swerve. So you have this heavy rain. It's pitch black and they're speeding. And so this duffel bag truck in front of us that's holding the shuttle bus is driving. We're following it. And suddenly a bag comes flying out the back.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh my God.
Comes flying out the back. And of course, it's the bag that has all the heavy books in it.
Oh, God.
So our bus goes right on top of it and gets stuck and wedged. And we end up creating a huge traffic jam. Oh my God. Huge.
Welcome to Costa Rica. Don't mind us.
It's like a one-laner through the mountains or something, right?
Well, this was actually like the main freeway from the airport to downtown.
Wow.
But there was maybe 2 lanes each. And for some reason, we created this traffic jam. So we all are piling out, soaking wet, and they're moving this truck around to try and get this bag out. And they finally do. It's all ripped, but they get it. And we kind of go along our merry ways and get to this house in pitch black, and we get in there. And as we get in, you know, everybody kind of piles in and falls asleep, and we're all bundled up in our feather blankets, and you hear tick, 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 you hear these mice running around, and we just put our blankets over our heads, and my mom's like, just deal with it. And I remember getting up. I remember getting up at 5 a.m, trying to go to the restroom, and the alarm goes off for the house. Every house has an alarm, and no one knew how to turn it off. So I just slumped back into bed and said, okay, I'm just not going to go to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Could you imagine this being your first, like even at 13, like you're the oldest one. Imagine what your little brothers and sisters were feeling like.
So here's the best part,
It's
though.
probably got to be easier, though, if you're, I don't know, I would see a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old more rolling with the punches than...
Yeah, maybe. You're right.
Oh, yeah. I was totally distraught. I was 13. The crush of my life was in New York. I was just going to start junior high. I was going to start softball. I was just, you know,
your life was ruined.
Totally ruined. Totally ruined. But probably the best part is in the morning after they figure out all the alarms and everything, my parents were like, oh, man, we have this restroom and we have no toilet paper and we have to figure out how to get to, you know, a grocery store and everything. And Joyna comes over and is like, well, I packed toilet paper.
Your one duffel
In my one duffel bag, I put 2 rolls of toilet paper.
Oh, 2 rolls. Nice.
That's awesome. That is awesome. You saved the day.
Not even thinking. So there you go.
Oh, that is great story. Great story.
I hope so. It was, you know, in the moment, very traumatic.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, 13, everything is traumatic anyway, but that sounds traumatic to me, and I'm not 13, so way to back everybody up with the toilet paper. So a lot of these experiences that you've had as a kid, I mean, I think we've all probably had strange experiences in our lives, probably a lot of them in our childhood.
Well, what's one of yours? Let's do a quick round robin.
Way to flip it over.
Yeah.
I can think of many. I mean, the last time we spoke on the podcast, I talked about how I was an accountant when I was 12 or less than 12.
Right.
Because I had to.
The family bookkeeper.
Yes, I was the family bookkeeper, like legit family, like my. And this kind of actually ties into the story I was going to tell, but my parents went, when I kind of hit 10, 11, 12 age, I don't know, they got the travel bug, and it never occurred to them that they had children, apparently, because they're like, we're out.
Oh, really?
And you guys just take care of yourselves. So there were times where I have 2 brothers. One is 5 years younger, one is 6 years older. So we weren't super close in terms of hanging out and stuff. And it was always like each one of us felt like we had our own, you know, like we were being burdened with the other, you know, like I was always having to babysit my little brother, and my older brother was always have to look out for his younger sister. But anyway, my older brother was old enough that he was never home. He was a teenager. He was high school or maybe even graduated from high school. And so he was gone. So I was left at home with my younger brother, who was in like early elementary school, less than 3rd grade probably. And my parents went off to Hong Kong and to India.
Oh, that's
And they
awesome.
came back like a month and a half later.
They didn't even need like a babysitter or nothing.
No, they did not. So
That's
I
crazy.
was left
That's so
imagine
that
the
is
stuff.
so big of you, by the way.
Imagine what you guys do on a daily basis. Do you go to the grocery store? Yeah. You have to go to the grocery store. You have to get food. You have to cook food. You have to get up and get yourself ready for school. And then get up your little brother and get him ready for school.
And then get to school.
Then I had to come home and I had to do the payroll for the construction company. I mean, my parents were gone. There was no adult in the house. I had an uncle that lived 30 miles away who would come check on us once a week. And he was also the same uncle who came over to pick up the payroll checks to deliver out to the construction crews.
Which was the higher priority, do you think? Payroll or checking on you guys?
Probably payroll, knowing him. And it was, honestly, now I look back at it, I don't think how ridiculous it is. It didn't feel ridiculous to me at the time. Although I do remember that particular trip being like, when is my family coming home? But even as I got a little bit older, my parents divorced when I was almost 13. And when she finally got back around to having a social life, because she ended up taking over the business and she was a single mom running the kids, my father kind of just checked out. But at some point, as we became more self-sufficient, or at least my little brother became self-sufficient, she would travel over to LA, to Laguna Beach, actually. And she would go, I remember being a teenager, so in high school, and she would be like, okay, I'm going over to Laguna this weekend and I'll see you after the weekend. And like 6 weeks later, she'd come home. And every week it was like, I'm going to stay a little bit longer. I'm just going to stay a little bit longer. I wouldn't know. Exactly. He ended up being my stepfather, and they were together until she passed away. But I don't think he was there originally. I think that she ended up meeting him after a period of time. But I mean, it's like, she didn't know. I mean, even if I didn't have children, I don't think I could have some sort of open-ended, like, oh, I might come back next week or not, you know, but she had children at home, and I would be like, are you coming home this week?
And keep in mind,
and I never knew
that this is a time before like cell phones and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, there's no
she
like
had
checking
no goddamn
in
idea what was happening in my house. Like not even
it's like no idea what they're going to find when.
Yeah. Sorry, that was my phone. Podcast.
We do
podcast faux pas. So I was very independent. And I had to be responsible for my younger brother, and my older brother was, like I said, he was just kind of checked out in his own life. But I've been on a therapist's couch before and telling stories similar. And I remember one time a therapist saying to me, man, you had a really hard life. And I got so bent that he said that, and so pissed, because in my mind, when you say to somebody, you had a hard childhood, I imagine kids who were beaten or neglected or raped or not fed, or like, to me, that's a hard childhood.
Like
or
war refugees.
Their families couldn't afford whatever the weekly groceries were. I mean, that's a hard childhood to me. And for him to compare me to that felt it made me feel uneasy a little, because I didn't think that was fair. As an adult, well, actually I was an adult when he told me that, but having gone through a few other really random, crazy life challenges, I realized that he's right. He's right. I led a life that was like a little bit abnormal, probably neglectful.
But at the same time, that was a therapy faux pas. I mean, to say a statement that your life was really hard in relation to what? And the only thing I can think of is hard in relation to his own life. So that's putting the therapist's ideas onto you of what a hard life is.
Or maybe even like other clients or patients.
Perhaps.
Right?
But I mean, even hearing Danielle speak of what you define hard as, you know, for families that couldn't afford groceries, mine couldn't. We went dumpster diving happily. And I don't see that as a hard life. I see the blessing in really being grateful for incredible food when it shows up.
But I think also, you know, that lends itself to the work that you've done about your life, and you continue to do. I believe, like, especially as a life coach, you gain knowledge and wisdom through the experiences of others in general in life, right? And then when you, as a coach and somebody that people are confiding in and really want some support, you are privy to information that maybe even others don't get to understand.
True.
So there's a lot of work that even though that you're doing with other people, you're doing with yourself as well. So there's you have a lot of clarity, you have a lot of understanding, you have a kind of a wider field of what's, of experiences in general. I feel like I'm kind of lucky to have that as well. But so let's dive in a little bit to the coaching, because there's coaching, which sadly is getting a bad rap sometimes, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who are just like, I'm a coach, right? But specifically you do NLP coaching. And so tell us a little bit about what that difference is.
Well,
and maybe even why you were drawn to that particular.
Yeah, that's a good one
style.
too. NLP, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Probably the most famous person out there right now that does NLP is Tony Robbins. He doesn't say he does it, but that's a lot of his coaching is based in NLP. And the idea is basically that we have thoughts all the time. We think different things. We believe different things. And many times we actually don't really pay attention to where we get those beliefs from or why we even thought that. So NLP has really cool techniques of listening to what you're saying to try and understand how you view the world. And if it's something that's helping you, fantastic. And if not, then let's change it. So it's about modeling people that are successful. So here's a really good example. In the 1930s and 40s, skiing was the idea of skiing, being a professional skier, was that only people who are elite that have the gift can do it. And so
snow skiing, right?
Snow skiing.
Yeah.
Snow skiing.
Only for the gifted.
Only for the gifted. There are certain people born with this gift and talent of skiing, and that's it. And so what ended up happening is someone took video footage of people who are skiing, the ones that are really great, and started actually breaking it down frame by frame to see what are they doing with their feet, what are they doing with their body, and recognized, okay, if we can create this pattern, if we can watch this pattern and actually replicate it, perhaps others can do it. And that's exactly what happened. That's why we have now ski instructors and all these different techniques and tools. So NLP is the same type of idea, but with your brain. If someone is really, really successful as a business person, they have a model and a structure that is working for them. What is it? What are they thinking? What are they telling themselves? What are the physical motions they're going through? And so then someone who's struggling with their business, struggling to be successful, if they put on that jacket, so to say, if they start actually modeling this, they can achieve that as well because it's a tried and true formula.
Right.
So same thing applies for who we choose as a partner, what self-confidence, how to release anxiety and depression.
Is there a class for who we choose as a partner that I can take?
I've already chosen.
I'm quite figure that one out.
So, I mean, I would say for me, I got into NLP because I was struggling with my career and I didn't know how to grow in a way. I felt like I was hitting this glass ceiling and didn't know how to get any further along. So my partner at the time said, "Oh, you should go see a life coach." I'm like, "What's a life coach?" He's like, "Don't worry about it. You know what? I will go ahead and I'll pay for you to have some hours with a coach." And the coach that I went to focused on NLP. And our first 2 sessions had nothing to do with career. She delved off the deep end and ended up digging deep and recognizing, oh, Joyna, you know, through what we've discovered, you actually have a very unhealthy view of selfishness. So I grew up in a religion where to be selfish is bad. So to do anything for yourself is selfish.
Right.
So there's that.
I hate doing stuff for myself.
Right? And some people are great at it. You know, yes, I will buy that car. Yes, I'll do this. For me, I felt guilty buying a chai latte. You know, I was like, I could buy Danielle, I could find the most amazing plants or clothes for you. Phil, I'd be like, oh my God, that microphone is fantastic. I'm going to get it for Phil. But anything for myself, I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. So
I think a lot of people have that view. I wonder how society has really kind of, you know, impacted the way people feel, obviously. But although I will say, like, and again, everybody's focused in certain areas, right? Like what's interesting to Phil on a daily basis, the content that you consume, Phil, is probably different than what I consume. Are you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm falling asleep.
But I tend to really get I geek out on again, this kind of whole self-development and that type of thing. And so right now it feels very popular for people to evangelize this idea of self-care, right? It feels like things are swinging back around and it's becoming a little bit more, quote, normal